we'll get started and pray. Lord, we thank you for today. Thank you for your many blessings. You've been good. I pray that you lead and guide us. Help us in this class to learn more about teaching and effective teaching. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. I believe you were to have a 3 to 4 minute story for me.
Okay, we got. What was the story about this Kennedy? Would it just be
a good story? Yeah. Okay, well, if we need to wait till next month, we can. Okay? I take it you don't have it.
Would it have to be a live story?
What do you mean, a live?
As in like a presentation sort of story, or could it's got to be?
Okay. All right. Well, have that ready for next month. There'll be another assignment to go with it, but maybe you can tie it all together. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's take out the PowerPoint sheets you have. Okay. We're gonna skip through that till you go back to the page on it that talks about leading a discussion. Okay, I think it's the third page, leading a discussion. You have that?
What is it in PowerPoint?
Well, the PowerPoints are printed like these are for you, like this.
Looking at subject. Organized set. Team teaching, is that the one?
It's on there. Yes, it's the sixth.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, leading a discussion. We'll look at that first, and then we'll go back to the other. Okay. All right. So, leading a discussion can be a very effective form of teaching in a class. It helps people feel that they're a part, that what they have to say is worthwhile, and like I say, can be very effective. A discussion is defined as a cooperative search for truth as a total group seeks solution to problems or questions. And really from anywhere from 6 years and up, even younger sometimes, can be very effective. It's a very challenging teaching method to use with adolescents and youth because often they clam up and don't want to talk. So it's very important how you go about leading a discussion and trying to pull them out and get people to talk. There's 2 types of questions. You can have factual questions or thought-provoking questions. Factual questions is like what you get in Bible quizzing. Who wrote the book of Acts? Named the apostles. Those are just feeding back facts. In Bible quizzing, you won't get questions like, why do you think the book of Acts was good? You know, you're not going to get a question like that. But when you're leading a discussion, you want to come up with thought-provoking questions. If you just ask a group of teenagers who built the ark, Noah, why did he build it? Because it's going to rain. Okay, that's what you're going to get. But if you ask a questions like, how do you think Noah felt after 10 years of building that ark? Okay, they've got to think about that. That's not just a factual question. So you want to work it using thought-provoking questions. Now, when I know that I'm going to lead a discussion in a class, I will usually write out my questions beforehand. Sometimes it can be a spontaneous thing that happens, but if I'm planning for a discussion, I write my questions out because sometimes it can be hard to think of them off the top of your head. Also avoid yes or no questions. If you do ask a yes or no question, who built the ark? Noah. And you can say, well, why do you think he obeyed God? Okay, that's going to be something they have to think about. So be very careful in what types of questions you use. Going on to the next slide, it says, take time asking questions. You must allow for plenty of time for discussion in the class if you choose to use this method. So don't get 3 minutes before class time is finished and think about having a discussion. You need to allow enough time. Also, never treat an answer with disrespect. Unless it's blatantly wrong, don't say so. You know, let's think of an example of this. Okay, who was thrown into the lion's den? Noah. Well, that, you know, you probably need to very nicely say, well, can anybody else think who was thrown into the lion's den? Oh yeah, Daniel, that was the right one, Daniel. You're not blatantly saying, no, you dummy, it wasn't Noah. But you're being polite about it. Okay, also, maybe someone just says something that's not really what you're looking for, or not quite right. You say, well, does anyone else have an idea about this? Again, don't put the person down, because what will happen? They'll clam up, and they won't want to share answers anymore. Don't overreact to answers. I don't know if I ever told this story to you about one time we lived in an area where there was a Hindu temple, Hindu commune, and they were building temples on 7 hills, supposedly like India. It wasn't a place that I never even went. My husband would sometimes take ministers who asked to see it. But we didn't advocate people going to it. But one time some of our young people went to that class, some late teen, early 20s. Went to that commune. And so they were in their Sunday school class, and the teacher was a wonderful lady, a godly lady, and a great teacher. But somehow in the discussion it came up that they went to that class. And she just went out of her head. She could not believe that they would go to that class. How could you go to that commune? How could you do that? That's so wicked. That's so awful. Da 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 da. Well, what it did is it completely turned the young people off. And the one said to us, I'll never express myself again in that class. So you have to be very careful that you don't overreact. And in the day and age we're living in, I find that more and more I can be shocked about things that are happening. You think you'll not be shocked anymore, and then you are. But you need to not overreact. Sometimes when I am shocked, I just do my best to keep a calm face and a calm tone and carry on. So don't overreact. And then also don't let it become a substitute rather than a supplement. What do you think that means? Don't let a discussion become a substitute rather than a supplement.
Like it just goes on tangent, I guess.
That, yes, or it could be, well, I'm not going to tell the class, but I'm really not prepared today, so we'll just have a discussion. Okay? Or maybe I haven't studied enough, I don't have enough material, so we'll just have a discussion. Well, that's not the point of having a discussion. A discussion is to add to what you're teaching, not be in place of you teaching. So it's important that you don't use it as a cop-out. All right? And as it says, their discussion takes time, but can be much more effective than lecture. If you get to give feedback, if you get to be part of talking about the subject, you're going to remember and learn more than if I just sit here and spoon feed it to you. All right, so some helpful hints for leading a discussion. Samantha, could you read those?
Be friendly.
Be friendly.
Know the size of your class. Know who is in control. Don't argue. Mix old information with new information. Relate the discussion to scripture. Don't let 2 or 3 people dominate the discussion.
Yes, and that's something that can easily happen. You find out kind of in discussion who are your dominant people in the class. And what you as a discussion leader have to do is try to draw everyone into the discussion. And we talked a little bit about that last month. We'll talk about it again in a minute here. But you don't want the discussion to be just between you and 2 or 3 people in the class, and the rest of the class of 10 or 15 is not participating. You want to draw everybody into it, and again, we'll talk about some ways. So those are just some hints for conducting a discussion. Let's go on to types of discussions. There is a formal or problem solving, which is pretty self-explanatory. You know, we have a problem here. How are we going to fix the roof of our building? So we're going to discuss ways of how to solve this leaky roof problem. Or there can be an informal or unstructured, a spontaneous discussion. Maybe something you're teaching just sparks a question in someone's mind, and it leads to a discussion on the subject. Now, you as the teacher have to be sure that you don't let that tangent go too far, but that you bring it back and relate it to the topic at hand. But sometimes you will find that these spontaneous discussions can be very helpful, very beneficial. Okay, the circular response. I think we mentioned some of these here now last month, but let's go over it again. Do you have any idea what a circular response is?
Is it like somebody starts something and then it goes on to a related topic and then we're like a cycle?
Well, it's not like Chinese whispers, it's not that, but it is like, if you couldn't do this with a class of 100, okay, but say you have a class of 6 or 8, all right, so everyone sits in a circle, the topic is thrown out, and everybody has to go around and give their input. Now that avoids anybody dominating the discussion, so everybody in the circle gives a thought or a response. All right, what is brainstorming?
You all collect a bunch of your ideas together.
Yeah, whatever pops in your head. Okay, this is what we do when we have a Super Sunday here. We sit down with the Sunday school staff and we get a topic and then we brainstorm. How can we develop this topic? Somebody writes down all the ideas. It doesn't mean we're going to use every idea, but we're just brainstorming. How could we incorporate this idea or that idea into the topic? All right, so that's what brainstorming is all about. All right, buzz groups. You know what buzz groups are?
No.
Buzz groups is when, okay, we have a topic we're going to study, and instead of me lecturing about it, I'm going to break the class down into groups of 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5, depending on the class. This could even be used sometimes with larger groups, just as long as your groups don't get too big. And you may give everybody the same set of questions, or you may give each group a different set of questions to discuss. And they talk about it amongst themselves. Sometimes you can appoint a group leader, or you can just let that evolve, however whoever takes the lead. And then another person kind of writes down the answers of what they discuss, and then at the end you usually have them come back and everybody report to the class their findings, their answers. Okay, so again it gets people involved in sharing their thoughts and ideas. So buzz groups can be very good. All right, case studies and open-ended stories. I know I mentioned this last month. Well, do you have any idea? Do you remember at all what case studies or open-ended stories are?
Case studies, like you have like a particular scenario that you look at and then discuss it amongst yourselves.
Okay, well a case study is, okay, so Samantha is deciding whether or not she could go to Bible school. Samantha could A, yes, go to Bible school, B, no, C, defer for a year, E, none of the above. Okay, you pick an answer that's given to you. An open-ended story is Samantha is deciding whether or not to go to Bible school. She should, and then they finish the story themselves. They pick the answer for that. All right, so those two can be very good in helping people to kind of think, or help people kind of come to making choices and decisions that are wise. Okay, it can be real or hypothetical. All right, so those are two other ways. So discussion can be a very, very good means of teaching. Like I said, most times I will plan it into my lesson, give time for it, and using any one of these studies, these methods perhaps, and then making it have a point. You don't use it again because you were too lazy to get a lesson prepared. You use it as a supplement, as to help that lesson come home better to the people. All right? Now let's go back in our PowerPoint handout there to the beginning. And you have there the parts of a lesson. Okay, when you're planning a lesson, you have an introduction, which is very, very important. I think I've said it before. In your first few minutes, you either grab people's attention or lose people's attention. So your introduction is very important, where you look or introduce the subject. Then you have the heart of your lesson, which is where you're going to search out the Bible, whatever you're teaching. And then you have the application and the feedback, making sure that people understand what you've taught. And you can get feedback in different ways. You can have someone stand and summarize the lesson. What have we talked about today? Tell me in your own words. You can give a quiz. You can give, how do we put this lesson into practice through maybe a case study or an open-ended story. All right, so it's important that we have an introduction, a main part, the heart, and then the application and the feedback. Okay, and next, again, I think we've looked at this before. The next slide says, for your cycle, you aim, fire, and teach. You set a goal, fire the trigger, and did you accomplish? Expect results. The results may not be immediate, but look for results over the long term. I believe I also mentioned about team teaching, how that team teaching can be a very good thing. Now, in our day and age, for most churches, is it in your church, you have to have more than one person in a class anyway? Is that how you do it in your church?
So you have to have more than one person in the class.
More than one person teaching.
Oh, yeah, well, because we're quite a small church, so at the moment there's just 2 people that alternate.
Okay. All right, well here I know that we have to, for child protection laws, we have to have at least 2 people in the class, 2 adults in the classroom at all times, yes. And so this is very good, because when you can put together a team of teachers for a class, and I know with small churches it can be challenging, but even just 2 people, you can pull your resources and creativity. One can cover for the other when one is absent. It spreads out the work. Students benefit from different perspectives. And it takes cooperation and communication. You can't have a team member and on Sunday morning, 5 minutes before it's to start, oh, hey, can you do this? You have to communicate through the week and work on things together, brainstorm together. How can we best get this lesson across? And you have a paper there on your own. We won't take time right now, but it says the A to Z benefits of team teaching. So you might want to take a look at that. And then also one more slide there, helpful hints for teaching. Always save class time by being in the room beforehand and organizing your equipment and materials. Anything you have, equipment-wise, technology-wise, if you want to play something, if you want to show a video clip, or if you have papers to hand out, you need, as a teacher, to go to that classroom beforehand to be organized and ready to go. If Sunday morning is the only time a person goes into a class, now I know when you're renting halls that can be a challenge, but you have everything ready, and as soon as you can, you get in, not when it's time to start, but early beforehand, and get things organized and set up. Don't take class time to set up unless there's a good reason for it. Maybe you're teaching on servanthood or being a helper, so you're going to have all the children help you set up and help you clean up. Okay, that has a purpose and a reason to it. It's not just because you're running late. All right, so those are important things. All right, let's skip the discussion ones now and go back over to the page where it says creativity. It's very, very important that we learn to develop creativity in our teaching. And the key to creativity and resourcefulness is to use what you have. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money to teach. You can spend loads of money as a teacher. At one point, I used to spend most of my paycheck on teaching materials. But you don't have to do that. Being resourceful is using what you have. Always look for free stuff. There was a manager of Marks and Spencer who went by the rule, if in doubt, throw it out. Well, no, if in doubt, I keep it. Okay? And some people aren't like that. It depends on your personality. But, and I'm a saver almost to a fault, okay? I see something that could be used. I was just, something this week I used that hadn't been used for probably 10, 15 years. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad I saved that, all right? So it's very important. Now, the downside of this is where do you put everything you keep, okay? But you can look for ways to organize and keep stuff. And decorations, things that you do for your classroom, don't just do it and throw it out, okay? If you have cut out letters, put them in an envelope, mark what it says, and keep that envelope of letters so you can use it again. Always take advantage of free offers. Sometimes when I go in the store and I see, if I would see big fruit signs hanging, my immediate thought would be, wow, I could use those to teach on the fruit of the Spirit, all right? And I've done that before. I've said to stores, what are you going to do with those when you take them down? Oh, we'll probably bin them. Can I come back and get them? Okay, and I've done that many times. Learn to organize your items, as I've said. That's very important. And if you're not a creative person, make it a matter of prayer. Team up with someone who is and read books for ideas. All right, so it's important. Do you consider yourself a creative person? No. Okay. Do you teach Sunday school?
Don't have any children.
Don't have any children right now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, when you do teach, you know, if you don't feel creative, brainstorm with someone else. It doesn't even have to be someone in your church. Get a friend anywhere. Go on Facebook and say, I'm teaching on David this week. Any ideas? You know, brainstorm about it and ask God to help you to learn to be creative. Now, one thing that will help you kind of develop this is the last slide there. It says your turn, the 5 senses. Sight, taste, touch, smell, and hear. We talked last month about how people retain more than what they just hear if they can see it, if they can touch it. If they can taste it and smell it, that's even better, okay? You have many, many ways that you can teach a lesson and try to incorporate this. And this has helped me to develop creativity because I'll take a story and I'll think, okay, now how can I teach this? Any age we're talking about. They can see what I'm talking about, taste it, touch it, smell it, hear it. Often we just let people hear it. Okay, but if you use these other senses, then there's much more of a chance that they will remember it because the more senses you use, the more someone will remember a lesson. All right, so let me just draw a story out of the hat, okay? I'm going to give you the story of Paul and Silas in jail. All right, how could you teach this lesson using different senses? How would you teach it more than just telling them the story, them hearing it? What could you do to see?
Maybe with, I don't know, like, was this the one where there was an earthquake?
Yes.
Maybe bring like a chocolate cake, crack it to give, and then they can taste it afterwards.
That's very creative. Okay, crack a cake. All right. What kind of visual could you have on Paul and Silas?
chain.
That's right, chains. If real change would be the best, if not real ones, you could even let the kids make paper chains, okay? But that would be a very good thing, all right? You've got your chocolate cake there about the taste. Another thing you might say, well, you know, in Israel or Greece, where they were in Greece when this happened, they eat lots of dates. So maybe Paul and Silas had some dates, and that's a different kind of fruit that they could taste. They could have a little bit of something to taste there. How could you make it smell? Hold on just a minute, okay? Can you hold on just a minute? Hold on just 1 minute. Do it on your phone. Do it on your phone. I'm sorry about that. Just 1 minute. Okay. Any way else you could think of a way for smell with the jail? What could you do? What could we do for smell?
What?
We have a great thing here. Now, this would be a little hard, but if you were here in Glasgow, here's a great thing you could do for smell. We have an air raid shelter under this building. So if I was going to teach on Paul and Silas, I would take them down there, and it's going to kind of be like a dungeon. And it smells musty, okay? And I would put someone in the corner with chains and teach the lesson that way. Any age, okay? So that's a very good idea. But the smell is usually the most challenging one. But if you think hard enough, sometimes, what do I do when I teach on the fruit of the Spirit? I spray peach-scented air refresher in the room, okay? Or some kind of fruit air refresher. All right, so just think, and you think, oh, that's silly, that's dumb, but you'd be surprised how people will remember. And the food thing is always fun. You can do lots of things with the taste. All right, so let me throw out another one to you, okay? We'll go easy. David and Goliath. How could we use the 5 senses in David and Goliath?
Definitely for touch. You could bring in pebbles.
Okay, there you go.
You could bring pebbles. They can maybe make their own sling.
Yes.
The boys would like that.
Okay. What about the food?
Food. Oh, cheese, because he was bringing cheese to the soldiers.
Okay, there you go. All right. What about, here again, smell is the challenge.
Sheep.
Oh, okay. Okay, but see, you came up with some good ideas right off the bat there. So that's good. That's what you have to do. And like I say, if you can't get it yourself, then you brainstorm with someone else, and you'd be surprised what you come up with. Okay? When I'm teaching on creation, and I try to have something for every day of creation, what do I use for when God made the day and the night? I use Oreo cookies. light, and dark. Okay? There's things like animal crackers you could use for Noah's Ark. Okay? So there's all kinds of things you can do. Daniel in the lion's den, use a lion bar. Okay? So there's lots of things you can do. What I would like for you to do now, you have an article there about the 5 senses. I think you should have it. I've given you lots of things this month that you can use in thinking about teaching. But you should have this article, The Creative Teaching Using the 5 Senses. I'd like you just to take a moment and read that to yourself. Okay, it goes along with what we've just been talking about.
Why does he call this council? Because here's the worry, that this arguing about who the believe God is, whether God's one, in different manifestations, or whether God is three, a separate person, or whether somebody, whether Jesus became more of a God as he got more holy. He's not really bothered about what the truth is, but he's bothered about the fact that spin them all into groups again, and thus his empire is going to be wide, because he'll end up with all these different groups. So he calls this council of Nicaea. So this is the first great ecumenical council of the Christian Church. He considers this area of controversy to be a big threat to his own political unity, and he feels so strongly about it, and it appears for the delegates to come to the council. So we've shown us the trade union thing before, and they sort of get together. This was the first one. He pays for the delegates to come. Why? Because he wants to get everyone together. Because he loves God that much. No, I don't believe that. Constantine was baptized right before his death. What I was supposed to do there, which I walked through, and you've got various different handouts. I've got time to read it all here, but you've got a little bit of a handout on that one, taking Brother Bernard, it says the top and the bottom at the top, and it's got page 1, 2, 3 on. Yeah, it's sort of in the right on the page. That's the one with the stabling. Yeah, the 2 pages together with the stable. That's page after the problem in Paul says the council of Nicaea.
Just let me know when you're done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that kind of gives you some more ideas there. Now, one thing that is very important, you have a lesson planning sheet like this. It's very important, especially when you begin teaching, but I even do it to this day, that you have a lesson plan in writing. Now, the idea of a lesson plan is to help you lay out in advance what you're wanting to do, and on the day that you're teaching, to be able to follow the sequence. And also a third value of a lesson plan is if for some reason at the last minute you couldn't be able to teach, this could be given to someone and they would know what to do. All right? So this is something that I want you to work on for next month. I'm going to be very generous with this and let you pick the story, you pick the age that you want to teach. All right? Now the goal is going to be to incorporate as many of the senses in this as we can. All right? So you be honest with me. Tell me, would it be helpful for me to go through and do one with you and then you do it? Or do you think you could take this and do it?
I think from what the creative